Hello, it's Ghost Stefana here, back with another story recap video. Apologies that it's been so long since my last one. I've been very busy playing lots of different games, so expect lots of new content very soon. In this video, I'm going to tell you what happens in Rockstar's 2011 neo-noir crime adventure game, LA Noire. So naturally, spoilers ahead. I did review this game a while back, so if you'd like to know more about it but don't want its plotline spoiled, then just clickety-click here. Now it's worth mentioning that this is a long and winding game, and I'm not going to be using this video to go into the ins and outs of every single case, because that would take way too long and you'll likely switch off very quickly. Instead, this will cover the main story arc and only include details from the biggest plot-defining cases. Let's go. Welcome to 1947 Los Angeles. We play as Cole Phelps, a decorated Marine Corps veteran who has just returned from the conflict of World War II and began working as a patrol officer for the LAPD. In the beginning of the game, we complete a few simple police jobs before we land a murder case. We're the first ones on the scene, and despite being a simple street cop, we use our initiative and actually manage to track down the culprit by following a series of clues. Naturally, this impresses some of the LAPD hierarchy, and we're even given the opportunity to close the case by conducting the interview. We successfully gain a confession, and this earns us a promotion to the rank of detective. Well, that seemed pretty fucking easy. We begin working in traffic, which deals with motor or road-based crimes. Alongside our partner, Stefan Burkowski, we impressively solve a range of cases, the last of which revolving around a dodgy paedophilic ring in Hollywood. When questioning Marlon Hopgood, the owner of the secret filming room, we're interrupted by fellow cop Roy Earl, who works for the Vice Department. Earl tells us that Hopgood is actually a police informant, and therefore we must let him go. This case leads to a huge shootout on a movie set, which is pretty fucking cool. Calling on all of our army training, we kill the bad guys and arrest the culprits. Our work on this case and those before earns us another promotion, this time to the Homicide desk, working exclusively on those juicy murders. Our new partner is Rusty Galloway, a very old-fashioned detective who spends almost all of his time on every case complaining about women and discrediting Cole's theories. However, Cole being Cole, we ignore Rusty's stubbornness and continue to solve a number of cases. Eventually, a killer resurfaces who Cole believes to be the Black Dahlia killer, which relates to a real-life unsolved murder of Elizabeth Short. The BD killer leaves its victims in a bad way, often using lipstick to display messages on their naked bodies. They also begin to send cryptic messages to the LAPD. However, Cole is a cut above the rest, and he uses his high level of intelligence to follow clues and track down the Black Dahlia killer. This leads to a standoff in an LA church, and the killer is revealed to be Garrett Mason, a temp bartender who we actually met briefly during an earlier case. Cole pursues Mason through the creepy and dark catacombs before eventually shooting and killing the BD killer. Rusty and Cole revel in their triumph in Garrett's weird murder room before the police captain James Donnelly arrives, and despite praising the duo, says that the case will no longer be mentioned as Garrett is related to a high-ranking US official. With the case closed and swept under the carpet, Cole is promoted to Vice. On the Vice desk, we deal with drug, gambling and prostitution-based crimes. We team up with Roy Earl, who we met previously during our time on Traffic. Roy is a pretty detestable character, clearly corrupt and in the pocket of the city's big drug bosses. Cole has to try even harder to complete his cases. During our time on Vice, Roy takes us to a local jazz bar called The Blue Room, in which Cole becomes drawn to its singer, Elsa Lichtman. He begins to frequent the bar regularly between cases, despite having a wife and children at home. Back at work, we learn about a batch of army surplus morphine which was stolen from the ship, which coincidentally brought Cole's former unit home from the war. The morphine is now being distributed on the streets of LA and has led to many deaths which Cole and Roy now have to deal with. Not all the deaths are caused by drug overdoses. Several of Cole's ex-army units start turning up dead across the city, and Cole soon discovers that not only was it stolen from their ship, but it was actually his comrades who stole it. We further decipher that LA crime boss Mickey Cohen is the one distributing the morphine, and to cover his tracks is having ex-servicemen involved in the robbery assassinated. Cole suspects that jazz room singer Elsa might know something more about the stolen morphine, and we're like, what, really? That seems a pretty loose theory, Cole. Cole tails her home one night in the hope of finding a lead. Instead, he's invited inside Elsa's home and the two begin an affair. Ah, I see now, Cole, you dirty dog. However, unbeknown to Phelps, Roy sees him enter the apartment. The next day, we arrest Courtney Sheldon and Jack Kelso, two of Cole's Marine unit. Both are strangely cold towards their ex-commander. When in the interview rooms, Kelso denies any knowledge of the morphine, but Sheldon is a little bit more cooperative. He is accompanied by a Dr. Harlan Fontaine, an odd spaced-out doctor who seems to have a bizarre influence over Courtney Sheldon. After much perseverance, Cole gets Sheldon talking and is willing to make a deal to bring down Cohen and those responsible for the morphine. However, before he can do so, the chief and captain enter the room and suspend Phelps pending a fitness investigation. We learn eventually that Roy Earl had gone to the press and told them of our affair with Elsa. He likely did this to distract from the increasing attention the Vice Department were getting due to their corruption. With our affair exposed, Cole's wife Marie kicks him out and he begins to live with Elsa. We're eventually brought back to work whilst we're waiting for our review. However, we are demoted to the arson desk, dealing mainly with house fires. With his glamorous and decorated police career essentially over, Cole must now deal with snide comments from his colleagues. Doing what he knows best, Cole throws himself into his work and begins to believe that seemingly normal and routine house fires are part of a larger conspiracy. Cole continues to grow suspicious of a link between burnt-out houses and the Suburban Redevelopment Fund, which is a program to house army veterans. Cole learns that those who currently own houses on the land are being bought out by the fund, and those who refuse seem to have their house burnt down. The Suburban Redevelopment Fund is founded by Leland Monroe, a huge property tycoon who is well connected within the LAPD. Seemingly aware of Cole's suspicions, that snake Roy Earl turns up and tells us to back off. Now being just an arson cop and currently pending review, we are forced to abandon our investigation. However, Cole encourages Elsa to contact Jack Kelso, his old comrade who he questioned earlier whilst on Vice. Kelso works as a private insurance investigator and Elsa asks him to investigate the fund, using a dodgy insurance payoff she received for a friend who died whilst working on the site as an excuse. We as the player now switch and control Jack Kelso, who gets to work and soon discovers that the houses are being built with unsuitable brickwork and that his own boss, Curtis Benson, is aware, but his company still insure the properties. Kelso learns that Benson is on the board of the Suburban Redevelopment Fund, alongside the city mayor Fletcher Bowron, district attorney Donald Sandler, police chief William Worrell, LA Times editor Raymond Gordon, and psychiatrist Dr. Harlan Fontaine. Now knowing the magnitude of the conspiracy, Kelso proves Cole's earlier theory to be correct and finds out that Dr. Harlan Fontaine has been using one of his vulnerable patients to burn down the homes of those who refuse to sell. In one fire, the patient burnt down a home thinking the family were away. However, they were actually inside and perished with the fire. Traumatized by this, the unknown man confronts Dr. Fontaine, who is in an appointment with his recognizable patient, Elsa Lichtman. He murders Fontaine and kidnaps Elsa. Back with Phelps, we arrive on the scene and learn that Elsa is missing. Despite his panic, Cole searches Fontaine's office and learns that the Suburban Redevelopment Fund is a scam and attempting to defraud the US government. Whilst in the office, Phelps also learns that Courtney Sheldon gave the stolen morphine to Dr. Fontaine, thinking that Fontaine would give the morphine to medical centres and invest the money in the redevelopment fund, of which Courtney thought was completely legit. Once he had served his purpose, Fontaine murdered Sheldon. In a flashback, we discover why Cole Phelps isn't liked by his former unit and why he is so reluctant to talk about his time in the military. During the war, Cole ordered his unit to burn out a cave with a flamethrower, suspecting there were enemy troops hiding inside. In fact, the only people inside the cave were innocent civilians. The man who carried out the flamethrower attack was Ira Hoogaboom, whose ordeal in the cave left him traumatized. Back in the modern day, it's revealed that Fontaine's mysterious patient who has kidnapped Elsa is actually Ira Hoogaboom. Kelso and Phelps team up and pursue Ira through the LA sewer system. Eventually, they catch up with him and Cole retrieves Elsa. Ira talks about his trauma, and Kelso, pitying his ex-comrade, shoots him and ends his suffering. Due to intense rainfall, the sewer water level begins to rise, and the trio very quickly attempt to escape. Kelso and Elsa get to safety, but Cole is swept away and drowns.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend.
A few weeks later, we see Cole Phelps' funeral. His LAPD shame is over, and he is now heralded as a hero. However, his eulogy is led by Roy Earle, with Police Chief Worrell sat nearby, showing that with Cole's death, the corruption and conspiracy of the LAPD goes undetected. Elsa leaves the chapel in disgust, whilst Biggs and Kelso reflect on Cole. In a post-credit scene, we see Cole's unit on the boat home from the war, planning to steal the morphine. It's revealed that Kelso was aware of the robbery, but was the only one who refused to be involved, citing the trouble it would later cause. And that's what happens in LA Noire. Don't forget, if you want to see how this game rates on our review system, then just click here to watch, and you can subscribe to be the first to see any future videos.